Hello everybody and welcome back to another Sino to Score video, and we are finally back. I apologise for the delay in the video. I have suffered the worst virus going, aka man flu. Any male species out there will know it is the worst type of virus and no one can tell us otherwise. So I thought I'd just give it another couple of days just because I wasn't feeling great. But we're back now, we're back on form, and look, I've even started to try and get into the Christmas spirit so that when it comes to Christmas Day, I will already be bored of Christmas, so why not? I'm wearing a Grinch one mainly because it's absolutely freezing, and this one is a little bit better, which means I don't have to put the heating on and pay £300 a month for the ridiculous tariffs that we pay nowadays, don't we, on these things. So anyway, enough of that. If you could please do me a favour and slap a like on the video, please. The last one did really well, and I was really chuffed with the amount of views that we had, the comments that were coming in, the likes, everything. It really did make my day until this lovely virus hit. So maybe it's actually a curse. But anyway, let's get into it now, and we'll get into game week number 13, where we begin with Brentford versus Burnley. And look, there's no shame in Brentford losing to Brighton away, who haven't actually lost at the Amex since April. I do feel that maybe Brentford even deserves something from the game, but they haven't been great on the road so far this season, so it was an expected loss. Plus it helped me actually get to the final six in last man standing, as I went for Brighton. Burnley in 19th now, and look, I envision this is where they'll probably end up. I think probably the bottom three is probably what it will be, unfortunately. They did lose at Turf Moor to Chelsea. There's no shame in that. Chelsea are top of the form table when it comes to away, and they are probably one of the few teams, Chelsea, who actually home advantage doesn't actually mean a lot when it comes to Chelsea, so fair play to them. They've only really picked up points once on the road, and that was at Molineux against the ever so poor Wolves, who are the only team below them in the league right now, which says a lot. I think Brentford and the confidence they're playing with will be a relatively comfortable day at the office, so I think 2-0 is probably the correct score in this one. But again, you could see them being more goals for Brentford here, but I feel like 2-0, given the way Burnley play, sounds about right. Man City versus Leeds, and well, Man City with what is considered perhaps a shock defeat at St James's Park, given Newcastle's form. I know Newcastle's form, or worse of their form, has come away from home, so it's not too out there for them to have gotten something at St James's Park, which seems to be the only place where they are able to pick up wins at the moment. And look, Man City did lose at Leverkusen as well, against Leverkusen at home at the Etihad, 2-0 in the Champions League. However, Newcastle's performance at home, as I said, have been good. So look, they now sit 7 points behind Arsenal do City, so definitely not out of the title race yet. Only 12 games in, and you know what it's like with Pep, usually the more the season comes in there. No, not my glass over. That'd have been entertaining, wouldn't it? So look, on the flip side, we've got Leeds, who are very frustrating to watch, especially being a Leeds fan. It was a better performance against Villa, and yes, probably did deserve something from the game. It's not the first time we've said this season where you're banging your head against the wall, where we should have been getting more against Spurs, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, and there might be another one in there. Look, I do feel that the majority of the blame and the onus does go on the board for their poor transfer window. But I feel like Farke can get more out of this squad. Look, they are good enough to get 17th position. It's just his in-game management is so predictable. And look, I don't want to go into this again, but it was funny because one of the Leeds fans channels that I do watch, Conor McGilligan, which, if you want to watch it, he's very good, to be fair. So I would recommend him when it comes to getting a Leeds perspective. He was actually counting down the seconds to the 70th minute as a joke. And then Farke, been so predictable, made his substitutions bang on the 70th minute, which was actually pretty hilarious of being a Leeds fan. So, yeah, look, the board could have done better. Farke, his in-game management is just so poor. I don't feel like he has many games left before he does get the boot, unfortunately for him. So I envision this being a relatively comfortable win. It wouldn't be surprised if Haaland scores a first half hat-trick. Could even turn out to be a cricket scoreline here based on how we play. So I'm going to go be somewhat generous towards Leeds here, and I'm going to go with a 4-0 win for the home side, which, yes, is me being probably very generous. Sunderland versus Bournemouth. So look, Regis Labrie finally got it wrong against Fulham in how he set the team up. You know, the 5 at the back, probably not the way to go here for me either, where you can get at this Fulham side. Look, I understand Sunderland usually have played 5 at the back fairly frequently, and it has worked for them, of course it has. Look at where they are in the league, especially for a newly promoted team. So it's easy to say after a loss at the manager, set the team up wrong. I get that. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. But all the teams to lose to for Sunderland, you probably wouldn't have expected it to be Fulham, especially based on their form. Bournemouth overturned a 2-goal deficit, didn't they, against West Ham, and probably should have gone on to win the game, but the heroics of Areola, you've got to say, fair play, probably deserved, or should have got man of the match if he didn't, based on how many saves he made in that game overall. Semenyo was obviously missing in that. I'm not sure if he's back for this. I assume he will be. I don't think it was a big injury. I could be wrong on that one. Someone can correct me in the comments for that. Look, it's affected everybody's FPLs too, because I still kept him in thinking he was going to be playing this, that last game. So hopefully he'll be for this one. I do think, as mentioned already, home advantage is definitely a thing so far this season, and a draw feels like the one here, and I'm going to go with a 1-1. Everton versus Newcastle, and well, Everton managed to get a win with 10 men after Guy decided to confront his own teammate Michael Keane. Kind of reminded me of the size difference between Jake Paul and the Anthony Joshua of the fight they've got coming up, where surely toe-to-toe there should only be one winner. So maybe we can get them in a boxing match at some point, because, you know, you've got things like that happening now, haven't you, where you've got YouTubers and influencers that are doing these boxing matches. So why not get football or boxing matches, you know? If you see maybe the likes of a Roy Keane or Patrick Vieira type thing, get them in the ring together and let them have it out after all those feisty derbies that they had, didn't they, with double-footed tackles and all that good stuff. So, yeah, look, Newcastle, on the other hand, their woes away from home have even continued in their Champions League away game at Marseille. And I appreciate Marseille, I think the top of league in Ligue 1. It's difficult, a difficult game, a place to go. It's even more difficult to see where their first away win from home this season is going to come right now. So look, Everton is one they should look at and be licking their lips at getting a win here. However, I feel this will be Everton or draw. So look, the Champions League against an intense De Zerbi side will surely have a bit of an impact, a slight impact. Look, I know they've had a few days to recover, I get that. It should be enough recovery time. I think the travelling and an intense match could be a little bit tiring. So I'm tempted to go with a narrow Everton win. Yes, Everton win. I'm going to go 2 goals to Everton and just the singular goal for Newcastle. Spurs versus Fulham, and Spurs got battered in the North London derby, where some fans are questioning France tactics. Yes, it's not pretty, and it is a complete contrast to the likes of, let's say, handball. Whether that's better is yet to be seen, I suppose. But there's been a few games now where they've looked really lacklustre against teams such as Bournemouth, Chelsea and Arsenal. Yes, I know they are all good teams. However, they barely laid a glove on them during those matches, where I think they've only had like 3 or 4 shots in 90 minutes against those teams, which is very poor, especially for a team like Spurs. Fulham, on the other hand, will be delighted with the 3 points against Sunderland, which, yeah, I know they're a newly promoted team, but as we all know, their form, or Sunderland's form, has been quite good, hasn't it, recently? Taking them 3, and now Fulham, with that win against Sunderland, should I say, is now taking 3 points clear of Leeds with superior goal difference. So, look, it was a thoroughly deserved win where they probably should have scored 3 against Sunderland. So, I do like Kevin, who has that technical ability along with the pace, the quality defenders' problems. So I do think Spurs will get back to winning ways here, but I think it could be a narrow 2-1 win for the Spurs to go marching on. Crystal Palace versus Man United, and we're going to start here with the home team, and Crystal Palace move up to 5th in the league, and very much like they are going to be competing for Champions League spot along with Brighton, Aston Villa too. So this is a big game in the battle to get a top 5 spot. Now, they got a 2-0 win against bottom of the league Wolves and never really got out of second gear, for being honest, and probably made Wolves look a little bit better than what they are at times. Man United with a laughable defeat, wasn't it, at Old Trafford. I'm not sure if anybody saw the Mark Goldbridge clip of him where he was saying there's no point watching now, it's just going to be 3 points in the bag for Man United and just move on to the next game. But then, yeah, Mark Goldbridge being the walking, talking meme that he is, then they had the huge upset, didn't they, of actually losing that 1-0. So, I mean, look, to ever lose at home against a team, especially with 10 men for 77 minutes, is pretty tragic. And, for any of those teams, you're really going to be kicking yourself, aren't you, for that one? I mean, look, the scuffle between Gay and Keane, it wasn't quite Kieran Dyer or Lee Boyer, but it was enough in this day and age to get a red card. Although it does show how soft the game is these days. It was only a slight little tat, wasn't it? It wasn't anything major. Moyes, on the other hand, he came out in his press conference and he said he liked the fact that his players are fighting, which I thought maybe is a little extreme, but I understand where he's coming from, as you want to see your players with passion, not to make mistakes, and be as perfect as possible. Of course, you want to have those arguments to tell each other to be better. Anyway, back to the game where Man United have struggled away from home, as have most teams. I do feel Palace have a bit of a fortress now at Selhurst Park, so I feel like Man United do generally score, though, and I shall give them the singular goal. So I think 3 goals for Palace and 1 for Man United feels like the right score. I feel like this probably has at least 3 goals written all over it, and I think like 3 goals could be the one for Palace. I mean, look, you've seen Man United away from home against the likes of Brentford too. So yeah, 3-1 is the final score. Villa versus Wolves, and yes, it is technically a derby. Well, I say technically, I mean it is a derby, isn't it? Aston Villa weren't actually that convincing at Ellen Road, surprisingly, but got over the line thanks to a double from Morgan Rogers. I mean, Villa generally don't do well in hostile grounds, for which even Villa fans will probably tell you, as I've heard on their fan channels. So something to consider in other games moving forward too. They are in very good form right now, finding themselves in 4th in the league, unlike Wolves, who are languishing at the very bottom, yet to find a win in, I believe, about 16 Premier League games now, taking into account, of course, last season, as we've only played 12 so far in this season. So it does feel like Rob Edwards is there, probably to help them get back up next season, as opposed to turn it all around this season, helping them avoid relegation. So not too much more to say on this one. Even though it is a derby, it surely is a comfortable day at the office for Villa, and I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for them. Forest versus Brighton, and Forest look like they are back after a highly convincing win against surprising strugglers Liverpool. Never thought Forest would go down anyway in the first place. I'll be battling at the bottom, given their squad depth and, of course, the ruthlessness of Mr. Marinakis, albeit they're not out of the woods just yet. Brighton find themselves in 6th and are around where I predicted them to be in my final league table, with them being my surprise pick to get that 5th place Champions League spot before the season kicked off. They have good squad depth, of course, and no European competition, which is also another factor for me why I put them so high up, which I feel will be the difference between them and, let's say, a Palace or maybe even a Villa to get that spot come the end of the season, although Villa do have an Emery, so look, we have to factor that in. I feel like this will be a split result here, and I'm going to go with the 1-1 being the final score between Forest and Brighton. West Ham versus Liverpool, and this is surprisingly a tough one to predict, and who would have thought that a couple months back? Not a whole many, I'd imagine. West Ham are out of their relegation zone now for, I think, the first time this season, after they picked up 7 points in the last 3. They were 2-0 up away at Bournemouth and let it slip, but thanks to the heroics of their keeper Areola, they remained in the game and came away with a tough point, but most likely a crucial point come the end of the season, especially away from home at a very good Bournemouth side. Liverpool, on the other hand, what do we say about Liverpool? 18th, I believe, they're on the form table, where Arne Slot is struggling to find his best 11. Just when we thought the balance of the squad looked better, they've gone backwards once more. How much more time does Slot have? My personal opinion, I reckon he has 2, maybe 3 games to save his job. Maybe that Leeds game, if look, if Leeds manage to somehow win that game, I think that will definitely be the final nail in the coffin. I feel like right now he's on a, he's on a thin ice, isn't he? Mainly as well, he's probably still got his job at the moment because of the credit in the bank from last season, winning the Premier in his first season. I don't think he'll have the love that Klopp had, even though he did win the Premier in his first season. So I'm going to say, man, this is a tough one. I mean, my heart says kind of Liverpool because sure, they can't lose again, especially with Slott's job maybe being on the line here. But my brain says West Ham, obviously given the form, given and they're at home and it's Nuno. I'm going to avoid both my organs here, both my head and my heart, and I'm going to go with a draw. So I'm going to go with entertaining 2-2, especially because we know how shaky Liverpool are at the back as well, and West Ham look like they've got their scorers back up and running. Leading us on to the final game, which is probably the biggest game of the weekend, where we have a top two clash after Chelsea have come off the back of a win against 10-men Barcelona. Although, if we're being honest, they were the better team, weren't they, before the sending off anyway. Chelsea have created the most chances in the league, scoring the third most, and Arsenal actually joint top for most goals scored with 24 with Man City. So on paper, this should be an exciting affair. Arsenal will be, of course, delighted with their comfortable win in the North London derby, coming out 4-1 winners, where on average they concede 1 goal every 2 games so far in the league this season, showing their defensive solidity even. Chelsea sit 14th in home form, which is very surprising, but have to factor in that they, of course, have had red cards in some of those matches. So probably the reason why they are a little bit further down. Arsenal have, actually they did lose to Sunderland, which was actually a fair defeat too, actually. So yeah, they probably wouldn't even be top 4, even if you take those red cards out of it. So Arsenal have only dropped points on the road at Sunderland and Liverpool, although the Liverpool one looks worse now given recent form of Liverpool. But I actually can see this actually being quite a dull game. So it's tempting to maybe go with a 0-0 because look, this is the type of game where Arsenal look at this and they just won't want to lose. But then Chelsea, of course, they'll be needing to win this, won't they? So they're going to go for it a bit more here, I reckon. Chelsea do need to win. Arsenal's defensive record shows them obviously be tough to break down. Look, they are missing. I think they're still missing Gabriel out there. That's the other thing to factor in. So I do think they'll concede. Chelsea, I feel like the game state will go Chelsea majority of the possession here because they are possession merchants for the most part out there. So I feel they'll have 55% of the ball. I'm going to go with the... I'm really tempted to go with the Chelsea win, but I feel like Arsenal are quite solid, aren't they? So I'm going to go with a draw. I'm going to go with a 1-1 here. And that's going to be the final match and score of this weekend, this game week. So 1-1. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Put your comments below. Slap a like on the video. Subscribe as well if you are new, because a lot of the viewers aren't subscribed, and it really does mean a lot if you, of course, do come back, listen to the videos and like them. But yeah, other than that, have a great week and weekend. And until the next one, goodbye for now.